Okay, great. Hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm here with Joyce. Is NITI, and what is your function stack like?
Yep. So my OP type is double feminine, NITI, sleep, consume, play, blast.
Okay, last. Great. No, wait, did you say play last? I'm sorry.
Oh, last. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, great. A lot of the same struggles then.
Yeah, the speaking struggles, man. It's so hard to vocalize.
Well, okay. I have a lot of questions about NI because I just don't understand. Uh, so I think just from your experience, what is NI like? And also, did you know you were NI?
Yes. Yeah, my type guess for myself was INFJ before Dave and Shen typed me. And so my experience with NI is that it's like it sees everything as interconnected, but then it will hone everything back to like a one principle, like the underlying principle, but behind it all. So to look for that main theme, that main point. It's looking for something main, the main idea, and then taking it away from the situation, in my opinion.
Interesting. So, I guess how would you translate that? Or where I need a sensory example. how do you see your NI in like a sensory way? Like, or what was it that you were doing and you're like, wait, that's definitely NI, you know?
Yeah. So something that is NI is like for instance, you're making me engage with my demon sensory, which is good character growth for me. So thank you, Nor.
Okay.
And so basically with my NI, how I engage with it in real life is like when I talk to people, it's very focused. Like it's focused on certain topics. Like with NE users, like extroverted intuition, I notice when I talk to them, they're all over the place. They talk about like multiple concepts and it's very like scattered everywhere. With NI, like when I talk, for example, if we're talking about like the meaning of life, I'll keep you honed in on that specific one thing, So I'm way more focused. Whereas like my INFP friend once put it as in like if you talk to Joyce, here's the glass of water. She'll talk to you about that glass of water, very very directed and very focused on that one idea, that one concept. Whereas like he described his NE as like, oh, he'll talk about the napkin and then he'll talk about the ceiling and then he'll talk about that and that. But he doesn't mean like the actual physical objects, but he means like in terms of ideas, like he's very like non-committal and he'll go everywhere. But for me, I'm committing to understanding that one thing fully. I want to flesh it out to the end. Yeah.
Wait, so do you see that in the way you almost approach life or things that you're learning?
Yeah. I approach it with everything I'm learning. So I tend to not show my ideas until they're like fully complete. And then I show people like the finished product of my concepts. So I spend all my time thinking about it with myself. And then I'll present to people the finished product of my perception. But I rarely present my perception before it's done. Because I don't really like, I don't bounce my ideas off of people like NE does. I'm more self-bake inside me, like with my NI. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Again, we're talking very abstract here, but so then you're you're doing HR, right? Right. Like, so what were you doing as your undergrad, and then how did you get to like? Because I assume, or again, this is quite stereotypical, but like I'm guessing that there's just like one straight trajectory to where how that would have come to be? Question mark? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to like follow that one path type of deal, type of person. And so my undergraduate was in human resources. I double majored in HR and marketing with a minor in philosophy and then a concentration in organizational behavior. And then I did my post-grad HR to do some co-op after that. And then now I'm getting my master's in HR. And I think that it's kind of really related to typology because it's about like workplace behavior, and like psychometrics is a HR thing too. And so basically my love for typology is tied with my future career. So I'm trying to like tie psychometrics, MBTI or OP, like with like HR. And because I notice a lot of people, they take the psychology route when they're trying to like pursue typology. So I wanted to be a little different. I wanted to get my doctorate in HR like before I'm 30. So yeah, the plan, the NI plan. And so yeah, my plan is to get my doctorate before I'm 30. And I wanted to get in something a little different than what most people do in the Myers-Briggs community. When they get their doctorate, they normally get in psychology, which is super great, and I love that. So I just thought I would see how it would be like to go a little bit of an alternate path that's still related. I think it sets me a little bit apart from the rest. Like because I would have more of a workplace approach to it, or like yeah. So that'd be cool.
Interesting. So, when did you discover MBTI and OP? No.
Yeah, so when I was 14, my best friend at the time, who was ENFP, typed me against my will. She was like, take this test, but you're gonna get the wrong type. I know your type. And so go ahead, take it. And so I got offended because she was applying that I had low self-awareness. She's like, I'm like, wait, you think I'm gonna get the wrong result on the test? And so I took the test and I got INFJ. And then she was like, oh, that was the result that I thought you would get. Never mind. I thought you were going to score it incorrectly or something. And I'm like, great. Now I'm slightly offended, but it's like nice of her to know, like, to know me so well, to already know my type. And so, you know, like the NITI I am, the first thing that I did when I figured out my type is I argued. So I was like, I could make an argument for why I'm an ISFJ too. And then so I tried to argue that I could be ISFJ because I'm an NT blockhead. And so that was my first exposure to MBTI. I tried to argue out of INFJ because I was like, if this is a real thing, then I want to know what I am. And if this is true, it should hold up against my arguments. So basically, I started off my MBTI journey as a blockhead who tried to disprove type, and then I realized that it was a real thing, and it, like, my ENFP was able to like counter argue me enough for me to believe in type. And so that was my exposure, that like how it held up against all of my arguments, and how it explained so many things in my life, and how it was like it so beautifully explained my strengths too. Because the traditional profiles, like they talk about how like NI is about like foresight. Like I have masculine NI, so I'm very like certain like type of NI, and so it comes across as like I kind of can predict the trajectory of things. I can predict how things might go very easily. I know the most likely way it will go, and I feel it with like an intense certainty. And I understand all the warning signals on that road as you go down that path. And so I really related to NI, you know, having that intense foresight, insight into the human condition. And I was like, that explains why I'm such an abstract person who cares about like people at large and how their minds work in a way that I haven't seen other people be this obsessed. So it made me understand like my mind in a very intimate level. And so I became very, very obsessed with it. And so I came across OP probably like last December, or sometime around there. I have feminine sensory, so I might recall the time wrong. And it was really cool because it provides a level of depth to typology. And I'm like, wow, now it's taking, the 16 types and then it's giving 512, and it explains so many things. Like right now I'm even doing, like, Dave and Shan, they talk about like visual cues for visual modalities. I have this problem where I look up sometimes, and I did it a few times during this live stream. And so, like, there's truth to Dave and Shan's system, because even my eye movements fit, like, what Dave had a video about, like, visual eye movements and how, like, visuals tend to look up when they're thinking. And I'm like, I do that, and it's really creepy that Dave knows that I do that, and he typed me correctly on that. I just, like, not that I place a lot of weight on visual typing. I think that that's not a good method of typing, but it's still fascinating because it's interesting to see the correlations with everything. So yeah, that's how I got into type. I think I came across Dave and Shan's YouTube videos because I knew about Dave's superpowers, and I was like, oh, what is this objective personality? So it had a really interesting, like, it had a really interesting premise that, it's kind of like, what I call it is like, it's like an extension pack, a DLC pack to MBTI. So it's kind of like, when you purchase The Sims and you want to get like more features, you want to get like and so you buy a DLC pack with it, and it's like the upgrade with the dogs or upgrade with a new feature that you wouldn't get otherwise. And I think OP is like that. So it's like MBTI is the base, and then like, or Jungian theory is the base, and OP is the expansion pack. And it's a fun expansion pack.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with it. Just one thing back to the eye movements. You know how you said that you looked up a couple of times when you were talking?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but like, we often tend to look at a certain side when we're conversing, when we're thinking of certain things. So it's like, if you imagine things and you look on the left side or on the right side, something like that. But I mean, not that I'm saying Dave's wrong. I'm not saying he's right. I don't know. But I'm just saying that, yes, no, I have, there can be, there's, but yeah, apart from that, like, pretty much agree with you. And then the beginning of that was your, how you got into it. So like, was it the sleep processing that really got you in, like the sleep consume aspect of it, where you were just like, this is who I am and I'm figuring myself out more?
Yes, that's definitely true. Just to answer your question back there. So with the eye movements, it's actually a part of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. So they talk about how you can type people by their eye movements. I don't know how true it is, but it's an interesting proposition. Like, so they talk about people who look up are visual thinkers, and they talk about how people, like, so they have basically learning styles for the ways how you use your eyes. I haven't tested this out on people, so it could be completely false. It's just something I was like, interesting, I might try to track it to see if there's anything there. But but I'm not a visual typer. I'm just, it's what I'm thinking about tonight. But like, like I don't agree with using visuals to type, but I'm just having fun tonight with it. And so yeah, sleep processing is what sold me on type. Like, when you have time to really sit with something and you're like, wow, like there is some like truth to this. Like it's undeniable. Like when you sleep it through and you like try to like siphon it and funnel it down and boil it down alone, and you're like, it still holds up against like your thoughts, you realize how like undeniable it is that it makes sense. So when you get to sleep on it, you almost get to call like to crystallize it in your mind. And it was that crystallization that like probably sold me on type, because like when I'm trying to understand something, I kind of need to sleep on it on myself. like, and then figure out what I think about it independently. And so it passed that like vigorous vetting that I have for ideas. And then when it passes that, I start to like, gain trust in it. And so, yeah, I really like type theory for that reason.
uh, and that's interesting because I remember like that's somewhere I think the animals are really interesting in how they're typed as like 4 different animals, and with the type, like I think it's just like very nicely done because I remember when I was trying to figure out my type, that's kind of why I started my YouTube channel, because I was like, this is me, wait, I'm not really sure, is this me? So instead of doing the sleep processing, I was like consuming all of this information, and I would go to my friends and I'd be like, wait, does this hold up with me? Is this who I am? Or like yeah, but either way, what I'm trying to say is that like clearly I do a lot of play. And when does that become a problem for you? Again, because it's all about like your saviors suck, right? So NI sucks, TI sucks. When is that over? I'm guessing overthinking, over analyzing situations, and just over consuming becoming a problem for you. Also, sorry, unrelated, but like not completely unrelated. But how is your SCTI consume? That's for the next.
For sure. And so I would say the reason why my saviors suck is because I can be so in my head sometimes, and I forget to engage with reality and really put myself out there. And like for instance, my YouTube channel, Type Talks, it took me like 10 years into type before I started making a YouTube channel because my SE is so low that I don't really act on things. But it's kind of like I reached a tipping point where I'm like, I have to face my demons. I have to do the SE. I have to put myself in reality because reality exists. I know, like, surprise, like mind blown, right? But now I have to take responsibility for reality instead of taking responsibility for just ideas. And so it's like about really like getting out of my comfort zone and kind of like applying myself instead of just like block banging until the cows come home, about human condition and how people are like and how to help people. Like you actually have to like engage and do stuff. And so that was a major turning point in my life. And so that really helped me get in touch with my demons, my show Type Talks. So you asked me about SE, right?
Yeah.
That was your next question, SE. And also you said one more thing.
Sorry?
So you said one more thing you wanted to ask me. So SE and another function?
TI.
TI. Yeah. So my question for you is, why specifically a question on SCTI? Do you want to know something like precisely?
Oh, I'm just how does the consume for SCTI look like?
Oh, okay. So you're kind of just like taking in things. But I feel like because SE is connected to NI, I'm always consuming with a purpose. So I'm never just consuming to consume. I'm consuming because I have like a path that it's related to when I'm consuming. So my SE consume is that like I could also relate that to food. Like I'm a tester in OP, and I like to test a lot of foods. I like to test a lot of theories. I like to test a lot of friendships. I test a lot of things. So I guess SCTI consume is just this like understanding the ST when you're consuming, I guess. Or it's like ST consume is like trying to get things in and just I call it Goldilocks. Like I had a friend, I mean he still is my friend, Nick Stride, and he told me about how consume is like Goldilocks. So you're going like to one porridge and you're like, that's too hot. And you're going to one porridge and you're like, that's too cold. You're going to the next porridge and you're like, that's just right. And so what my consume is like I taste everything so I can ultimately find the thing with the most quality. So the just right porridge. And that's how my consume feels like.
Nick's tried TESE.
He's TESE, yeah.
Yeah. This is funny because he thought he was an INFP, right? But
He thought he was many types.
oh, okay, I didn't know that. But anyway, consume. Back to consume, yeah. So do you ever just go on YouTube, or like, do you just go on YouTube and browse your YouTube page, or is it almost like, it's almost, again, very anecdotal, but
Do I ever like browse my YouTube page? I tend to like browse for songs. I browse for type related content. I browse to watch the Try Guys because I really like Eugene. But yeah, I tend to consume within like that scope. I tend to have like very little free time, so when I do get to consume, it's a nice pleasurable thing. But also as like a busy body that doesn't have much free time anymore, I cherish every moment I get to consume. And sometimes it's hard to appreciate it because the moment passes by too quickly and I'm like, I want to keep consuming, but I only have so much time.
wow, I wish I could stop consuming. That would be beneficial. But wait, why Eugene out of all of the four? Like he's the moodiest. I mean, I think.
Oh, I like Eugene because he seems like he's been through a lot, and that's like it kind of makes his character really interesting because it's like I like people who have been through adversity. Like I like people who come out the other side, and it's kind of like facing their demons. Like they're forced to face their demons, and so you see a person who has been fighting their demons their whole life, and it kind of makes you feel like it's okay to fight your own demons. And it's like it's inspiring, basically. Like he has this confidence to him that I wish I had more of. Like it's probably his blast higher up. He's very like blasty, or like he has that strong domineering presence. He's able to just be like when I first saw him, he was like super confident, and I was like, I'm blast last, and I'm like, man, he's so cool. I wish I was as cool as him. So I've always been in awe with Eugene just because I want to blast as well as Eugene blasts. Yeah. Blast envy.
Yeah. I feel you. Also, you're doing great blasting right now. Just if that helps. Oh yeah, interesting. And I wanna understand a little bit more of your. Have you ever tried? Okay, so this summer, again, TI is like always like a very big part of, I guess, my identity, and everything that I'm thinking about. Like it has to make sense, because if it doesn't make sense, then like I don't like it, right? And I've spoken to a lot of my FR friends, and it's almost like I don't know if it's the play savior in me or if it's just the TI, but like if I'm, say, going through a tough time, I need to be able to justify it to myself that, oh, it is like a tough time, so I'll go on my consume and I'll kind of consume stuff, and I'll almost justify that, like, okay, it's good, I should take this break or whatever. But I've noticed with my FR friends, like if they're feeling down, they're just like, oh, I just feel so down, I'm not gonna do anything. And that it's I think it's a great thing, because especially if they consume sleep, it's like, wow, I mean, you do you, like, that's great. But also, how do you do things without like having an explanation for it almost? Have you experienced that, or have you dabbled in trying to go FI?
For me, like, things need to make sense, and I notice when people aren't making sense. So people, I notice when they're being hypocrites, or I notice when they're like their fallacies, their inconsistencies, their the things they say that are inaccurate. Like, they'll say one thing and then they'll say another statement that completely contradicts it later, and I completely notice it. It's like I gather a history of the truths that everyone has told me, or a history of what has always made sense, or a history of things that make sense. And I notice people constantly contradict themselves. And I'm like, well, what does anything mean if everyone just contradicts their own truth? Like, then does the truth mean nothing to them? And then I can't really like place weight or value in things unless like it actually like makes sense. Like, I don't want to believe in something that is false. Like, a saying that I like is, if it's not true, it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. And so I live like that. That's my TI saying. If it's not true, it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. And so I look for that what things to make sense before I invest emotion into it. Or like, I need to actually like, my inside world is kind of like detached and like analytical, because I'm trying to figure out the truthiest truth, and I don't want my emotions to influence what I think is the truth while I'm searching. So I'm when I'm in my TI, I'm very like engaged in analysis of the, and then yeah, so I relate to you.
Interesting. But why is it that you consider your emotions not true? No. Like how
Emotions are true. I like emotions. Like I like I like emotions as long as like they're no, like I just like um if there's like a, a a a thing farther than the emotion. Like, I don't want it to just be the irrationality, but I want them to have like something underneath that. But whatever they have underneath that is good too. But like, so that doesn't really make sense. I'm being very abstract right now. But it's like this. What I'm trying to say is, okay, so strange for me, like I am like TI savior, but I'm very comfortable with emotions of others, and like I'm okay with emotions in general, and I like them, and I find them very important, and I want to help people generate better emotions. Like, it's very important that the world, I'm able to contribute to the good feelings that go around and around people, and that the relational dynamics around me, like they like I'm keeping track of them, and that they're good and all that. And so yeah, it's weird. Like, I have demon FE, but I do feel comfortable with emotions. It's just that I block bang constantly. So right now you can hear me block banging as I'm talking, because I'm arguing with myself apparently. So I'm trying to get at a rationalization that makes the most sense to me. And so you can hear me like saying things, trying to parse out my own logic constantly, even though I feel comfortable with emotions. So like my FE and TI, like, to me, they feel like there's no exactly like demon among them. Like, there is the demon FE, because like if one's a savior, one's a demon. But my FE feels relatively leveled with my TI. So I do embrace emotion. I just yeah, I have no problem with embracing emotion, actually. I'm sorry. Like, it took a long time for me to get there. I had to blast it out a little bit.
no, not at all. But okay. Okay. All right, let's move on. So SE, again, the NI-SE dynamic. I guess I understand SE. I just don't like. Do you think? And I guess this is more of an opinion, but like, do you think that NE is like the same as NI, but like more? Just more. So say you're doing NI and you have one path to another, NE is just seeing more of those one paths to others, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think what NI is trying to do is it wants to make the comprehensive picture of the SE moment. So because like they're connected, right? They're two sides of the same coin. NI is attached to SE. So SE is collecting all these the sensations that are happening around them, like the variety of sensations, gathering all of them. And NI is trying to like consolidate an understanding of what that all means into like a coherent way, so the NI is almost building on something. It's so you get a more rich idea of what you're currently seeing. So you get like that full abstract picture, all the underlying meanings of that SE moment. So NI is like it's storing like these underlying meanings that it sees. Whereas I think like NE, extroverted intuition, it's exploring meaning. So NE, because it's exploring meaning, it's not exactly like storing ones. And so there's a personal attachment that NI has that NE is could care less about with ideas, because it's more about exploring ideas. And so I see NI as committed to ideas, and like NE is non-committal with ideas. So that's how I like differentiate it in some way. And
Right.
NI, it gets like fixated on the ideas that it cares about, whereas NE, it's able to be more fluid between ideas. And so I see them as very different. It like NI, it can share some qualities with SI in the sense that it's a personal impression that they have. Whereas like with NE and SE, they're kind of like impersonal, and it's like just gathering a variety, and there's the joy in that. And so it's interesting. Sorry. So your question, to answer your question, you were talking about like SE and I. And so how that feels like with SE Demon as the last, it feels like I'm against doing things that are impulsive, or I'll have like small spurts where I want to be as impulsive as possible to make up for all the times that I never got to live out anything impulsive ever. So it's very like all or nothing with SE, but I tend to like really with SE it's hard, because I guess how I experience it as a demon is that I don't like to collect things unless there's like an NI meaning with it. And so I'm too stuck in my box of implications. So I have my IJ box, and it's my NI box. And I want to like forecast every implication to anything that's like in a long range way, in a long run way. And so I have like the SE, which is like actually getting outside of the box. And I really don't like to leave my IJ box sometimes, because it SE is like collecting experiences, and that could challenge some of my NI ideas. And so it can be like a little hard to then go into the sensory and to be more involved in the sensory. In a sense that um, I want to be able to know what I'm getting into before I get into it. So I'm a very like look before I leap type of person. So the SE demon causes me to constantly like be cautious. I'm like so cautious.
Interesting. That's why you didn't want to meet for COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I also have a low immune system. I've been sick the entire COVID. Like it's been like, I think I have feminine sensory, so this is my guess. Like around 5 to 8 months of COVID, I've been sick the entire time, but not with COVID, I think. So basically, I don't want to go out because I'm like a walking like I'm a walking like the target that COVID's looking for. So to protect,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and I'm gonna ask you one last question, which is like, what is what are your OP goals for the future? So like, where is one thing where you think you're lacking, and how would you like to make up for it? Or how would you, I guess, want to be in some way, or happier growth?
Mm-hmm. So my OP goal is to continue practicing my blast until no one can tell that I'm blast last. So my goal is to become so smooth at talking, so effortless at talking. You know, Shannon from Objective Personality is blast last, but you wouldn't be able to tell now because like she's just so eloquent when she speaks. And she had three rules with that. So she's like speak fast, speak with emotion, and speak with certain, or I forgot the last one, but like basically she gave blast last tips, and I want to integrate so many blast last tips to the point where I don't even seem like I am blast last. Like I want to be so good at peacocking that it becomes um real peacocking. I don't know. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Okay, that was great. Thank you for being on.
It was nice being on Noor. I loved chatting. I love your channel, and you have really pretty pink hair.
Yeah, I do.
Mhm.
All right, I'm just gonna end the broadcast here.